You're listening to the Write Project podcast and radio program, a show about writing and modern Newfoundland author culture. This program is produced and recorded at CHMR FM 93.5 FM in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, and is aired on other great stations in the province and elsewhere in the country. It can also be heard online at www.chmr.ca. I'm your host, Matthew LeDrew. Okay, Write Project fans, we are here with a very, very special guest today. All the way from Corner Brook, Newfoundland, we have Paul Carberry, author of the Zombies on the Rock series from Engine Books. Currently, there are two titles out in the series, Zombies on the Rock Outbreak and Zombies on the Rock The Viking Trail, which, appropriately enough, takes place on the Viking Trail. There is a third book in the works. He also has short fiction in Fantasy from the Rock and Chillers from the Rock. How are you today, Paul?
I'm great, thanks, Matt.
Great. You were just out at the Newfoundland Horror Con, were you not, this weekend?
I was, and it was a wonderful little event they had there.
Yeah. Talk about that. How did it go?
It went great. Just a terrific atmosphere. Just a terrific group of people running the event. Everything went well. The Stone Jug is an amazing conference area.
The food!
Oh, the food was amazing.
Yes. And there's so many people who are readers. Like, they didn't have a huge turnout, which is normal for a first-year event. Like, they had good turnout for a first-year event, but, you know. But, like, it seems like just there's an enormous amount of readers in the horror genre. It seems like people who like horror read horror.
Yeah, it seemed very much like everyone at least stopped by, said hi, and just about half of the people that came by the table picked up a book, which was great.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good for us. Good for us. Good for zombies.
Yeah. It's always good for zombies. It's growing.
Yeah. So tell me about the Zombies on the Rock books. How did that come about? How did you start writing those?
Zombies on the Rock, the actual book started as a crime thriller mystery novel. Okay. And me and my friend have always talked about zombies, what we'd do in the zombie apocalypse. Like, how would we survive in Newfoundland, specifically. So I was writing this book, and I was almost halfway done. I was like, you know what? It's just not coming together. Maybe I can make it a zombie novel. So then I went back and reworked the first little bit so that the body was missing, and then it turned out to be a zombie. Okay. And then I just went from there, and just, like, it's, you know...
It grew.
It grew, yeah.
Yeah, that first book, I loved it. You were published by a publisher we won't name before, but you were published by a previous publisher.
That's right.
And I read it and absolutely adored it, especially that ending. Without giving away spoilers, there's this spot where it could end, and it could end happily, and then it continues for another 40 pages. And to me, it's this moment of, like, it's like in a great movie when, like, there's a happy ending, but then the camera stays on the people for too long, like at the end of The Graduate, right. And it just sticks around and changes what the end is, and it makes you reevaluate everything that came before.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Yeah, so that's, I actually got the idea from the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, the Zack Snyder
one.
Yeah,
they get on the boat, and they could have ended the movie right there, and it was like, okay, they're okay. But they get to the island, and there's zombies there. So that was my, like... jumping off point. Like, I wanted to end the book.
Which makes sense, because this book is also on an island.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah,
awesome.
So, yeah, that's how I want the book to end. Just like, it could have ended where I left it, and I could have never done another sequel, but I was like, I think I want to do another one for sure. So I just went a little bit further and just...
Nice.
Had to go there.
That's awesome. Yeah. Tell me about Viking Trail. What was that, the experience of going... Because that one, you knew you were starting a zombie book from the start. So Tell me about the process there. And you were already at a publisher at that point.
Right. So I had the book written completely right around the time I met you, actually, and we started talking. Okay. So it was ready to pass in at that point to that current publisher. But then, like, when you started, you were going to rewrite or redo the first one. Yeah. It gave me a little more time to work on it, but I wanted to do something different that had never been done before, and like went up to Lands and Meadows where the guys were acting as Vikings. That's their day job for the summer.
Are there Viking reenactors there?
There are. They're not there all the time, but like they go there, and like while they're there, they live as if they were Vikings. So I was like, wouldn't it be awesome if they were there while the outbreak took place, And instead of being like, oh my god, it's zombies, it's like, well, I'm a Viking, I'm gonna...
They stayed in character, basically.
Basically, yeah. So,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, so that was my idea for that book. And I wanted it to be different from the first one. The first one I found was a little bit more horror-based, and then this one picks up the action a little bit more.
Nice. I find horror and action go pretty hand in hand. It seems like, I haven't seen it yet, but it seems like the new Halloween movie is going to do that, because it seems like it's more like Laurie Strode
with the gun.
And it seems more like an action film. Yeah. Seems more like a revenge movie, like the type that came out in the Grindhouse days, where it's like, no, we're going to do this. This is the second act.
Very much get that vibe from that movie. Just she's a kick-ass woman, like she's Sarah Connor, Terminator in the Halloween movie, and I think
actually that makes sense because that was the same kind of genesis. Like the first Terminator, she was the victim, for lack of a better word, and then she was the badass person who survived.
And the first one, she needed to be saved. The second one, she was the savior.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
Don't know if they tried that, but maybe.
Actually, I was watching a review recently, and someone said that. I was like, well, clearly they've seen Terminator 2, and I was like, oh, okay, but I didn't get it. I didn't piece it together until that just said that that's kind of what they're doing. That's a cool twist. I like that.
That's the vibe I see. She went from being the victim to she's going to fight back, and she's not going to just fight back. She's going to be ready. She's full on.
Agency is a big thing. Like that's the hard thing whenever I write horror, when I do write horror or thrillers, is the main character is usually not the killer. The main character is people around the killer, people having to deal with the killer. But because stuff's happening to them, not them doing stuff, there's always a problem with like agency. That was my problem with the movie The Strangers. Because the main character, Jennifer Connelly, doesn't really do anything. She has stuff happen to her, but she doesn't really make any choices throughout, and at some point it gets frustrating.
Yeah, very much so. That's one of my favorite movies.
It is. I liked it too. I think. Yeah, I would have taken about 30 minutes off it, but yeah.
You could have.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it would have been
It is scary, don't get me wrong.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice if she could have done anything other than cower in a corner.
And it's realistic. But at the same time, you want that third act where it's like, okay, they're victimized all the way through, and then they come through and they defeat the bad guys.
Right.
But that's not realistic, and that's not what they were going for. They were going for, if a slasher happened in real life, this is what happened, and sadly, it does from time to time.
Right, very much so.
Yeah.
And I remember what happened to you when you were a
Someone
kid.
knocked on the door, and then later on,
he saw the Charles Manson murders and combined them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Based on a true story, but not really.
Yeah. Based on semi-true events.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. As all true event stories are. Yeah.
Titanic, I think, stayed pretty true to the story, but...
Well, the boat sank.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, Jack and Rose were never on it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So your third book's coming out now, as well as you're working on a shark-themed book. Is that correct?
That is correct. So, third novel, I tried to make different from the first two novels. There's a lot more character struggle in this one.
Okay.
Where it's not just him fighting zombies. It's mostly the main character fighting the decisions that he's making, and why is he making such poor decisions. Like, is it best for him to survive, or should he do the right thing? Like, is there a right thing anymore? Like, he struggles with those choices. Oh, wow, that's good. A lot of, that's interesting with the zombie motif. So you could go, they say there's three different stories. There's a man against nature, man against man, and man against himself. Right. So it sounds like you're kind of doing... The zombie tropes are usually man against nature because the zombies are seen as a force of nature. But you could almost say that you're shifting into man against himself and, arguing with his own choices and stuff. Very much so. And, just arguing with the people that he's close to, because the main character has a wife. And he makes decisions based on what's going to protect him and his wife. Even if it's going to get, a close friend killed. Or, put someone in danger when he could have made another choice. Yeah. Or just not acted he doesn't have to be the one to take action, but he thinks that he does. Yeah. So then he makes a choice abruptly, and then something bad happens. And then, how does he deal with it now? He made the wrong choice, but he still knows, I would make that again because it keeps us safe. Yeah. And then his wife is the opposite. She's like, no, you have to fight for something. You can't just keep us alive. There has to be something more. So even
That's an interesting moral dilemma.
Yeah, so like his wife is the one that kind of tries to bring him around, and whether she does or not, you'll have
survival. So it's like survival for survival's sake and maintaining some of our moral humanity.
Yeah, like if we're ever going to be a society again, you can't just make the decision that benefits you. You have to make a decision that is acceptable to society.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that's what I tried to do with this book, and I hope it works out really well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. No, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a really good... I actually can't wait to read that. That sounds awesome. So this main character's wife, what's her name?
Dana.
And what's your daughter's name?
It is also Dana. And
See, let's talk about that. What are you thinking? She'd better live, is all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, she lives.
Okay.
My wife told me that if she dies, there's a divorce in her future for sure.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
But no, before the book came out, was like I didn't know my wife was pregnant, and it was before she was even thought of.
Okay.
And like we both like the name Dana, so I had just chose that because I like that name.
And then your wife wanted to name your child Dana.
And that's not the name I wanted to name her. And it was mostly because of I had named my main character Dana.
Exactly.
I wanted to name my daughter Annabelle. But before,
well, that would have been creepy too.
Yeah, but not for the doll.
Yeah.
But I didn't know about the doll until I told someone. Someone's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "What?" And then they showed me the doll. I was like, "Oh."
Yeah. No fun. No fun.
So yeah.
She's named after Dana Scully, is she
Dana
not?
Scully, very much so. And I hope she grows up to be just like her.
Yeah.
Medical doctor in the FBI. No.
Yeah. Don't think Canada has an FBI.
No.
We have something similar, but not that.
Not yet, no.
So the other book you're working on is a shark book. That's a bit in the future, so I don't want to get into spoilers or anything like that. But have you been doing any research for that?
Oh, just a ton of research on that. Just reading every book I can get my hand on. I'd watch Shark Week anyways, but like I took notes.
There were notes on there was a picture on your Facebook page, your author page, of young Dana watching Shark Week with you, I think.
Yes,
yep.
Yeah. That wasn't her choice, but it was,
she's two.
She's two, so she, we watched Shark Week. I've just been taking notes and like theories that they're kind of suggesting I'm taking and running with. And one of the theories that I had was no one's ever seen a great white shark mate or give birth. And
is that true?
That is true. They've never seen it. They've seen other sharks give birth and other sharks mate, but never a great white. So they've always been looking, where do they mate? And they've always been thinking it's off the coast of Bimini or it's off the coast of Guadalupe, out in deep water. But now they have a theory because they accidentally, a shark that they tagged ended up in Halifax. So they went towards Halifax.
For no good reason, like.
Yeah, like they're just like, what's it doing up there? So they went up and they started tagging multiple great white sharks, which they had no idea great white sharks frequented that area.
Well, you'd think that there'd be evidence of a great white, but if they're going up there to mate and not to hunt, then that you wouldn't have the evidence of great whites that you would otherwise.
Exactly. So they've been tagging great white sharks, and a shark named Hal, named after the people of Halifax, took a little trip down to the south coast of Newfoundland. And they believe that the shark is there to mate, and now I think maybe next year, when the weather's a little better, there might be a little shark research out off the coast of Newfoundland.
Well, that'll be a timely addition for your book then. That's cool.
That works out great, and it's just a happy coincidence that was my theory. I'm thinking like, hey, maybe the sharks could be mating off Newfoundland and no one knows.
It's always fun because I think to be an artist or an author, whatever you want to call it, you have to be a little bit psychic. You have to see the way things are going. You have to be able to see not only the way a story starts, but how it finishes.
Right.
So sometimes there's a factor of predictability, and 90% of the time it's wrong, but just like art imitates life, sometimes life imitates art.
Right.
And we gotta all think back of weird examples from fiction where there are all these conspiracy theories online of like, The Simpsons predicted this, The Simpsons predicted that, or whatever, because something that they did 20 years ago ended up being true.
Right.
But you ignore the 40 things they did that didn't
happen.
end up being true from the same episode.
Right. So hopefully they get some more research done, and maybe I'll add that to my book. But my book also has elements of the cod fishery.
Oh, nice.
A little bit of conflict between like politicians and fishermen.
That's necessary, yeah.
And global warming has a little bit of factor, especially in the theories of my books, like the way the water is melting. There's more cold water, the water's getting deeper, so sharks are getting bigger. Because back in, like, when Megalodon existed, like, the Earth was a lot of water, and they were able to exist
Oh,
because
that makes sense.
they were much bigger, but the ocean was also bigger. So now that the ocean's getting bigger again, maybe great white sharks can get bigger again.
They were the apex predator at the time, too. Now there's more predators than there were back then.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So.
You could almost have a global warming themed excuse for a Godzilla franchise there, where like stuff's getting bigger now.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah,
that's another thing
that's actually an interesting thought. It's way off topic, but I mean, in the '60s we had this birth of superheroes based on radiation, and like Godzilla based on radiation. There was a lot of nuclear panic kind of thing. Science fiction and fantasy usually takes our fears and manifests them in different ways. Right. So Spider-Man bitten by a radioactive spider, Hulk the radioactive bomb, all this stuff kind of thing, and Godzilla obviously. Maybe it's time we updated those stories to be now global warming. Like that's the current panic. Let's maybe Godzilla, the new version shouldn't have been atomic research. Maybe it should have been
global warming.
Yeah, somehow caused it.
The Earth gets warm enough for him to come up and come on land now. Or the waters are too cold. And
maybe he's been hibernating for thousands of years since he was allowed to roam, kind of thing, and now the Earth's warm enough that he can
come back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are interesting things you could do with that. I think you'd be accused of politicizing it. Like, there's a lot... Man, no one was accused of that back in the day. Like, nobody ever said that Stan Lee was politicizing the nuclear debate by making a monster out of a gamma bomb.
Right.
But now if you did that, if you wrote... when you write global warming into your shark book, someone will say that.
Well, that's a wrong theory.
Yeah.
Or, there's still people that believe in flat Earth, so...
Don't even... Yeah.
So, if they can say that, I can make up a fiction story and...
Yes.
Loosely base it off facts.
There's only one flat Earth, and that's Discworld. And I think every time a flat earther speaks up, Terry Pratchett's estate should sue them.
Yeah.
Have you gotten a chance to read any other books that you've been reading lately that you've been enjoying?
I've been reading the Meg series.
Yes.
I'm currently on The Trench, which is the second book in the series.
Okay.
So that
was the recent movie, The Meg. There are more books in that than just the one?
Currently, I think there's 7.
Really?
7 Meg books. One just came out, but number 6 and number 7 have only been special order. They don't have them out on mass market paper book. So if you didn't pre-order the book, you didn't get a copy.
Wow.
It was only a hardcover, and the hardcover was signed by the author with a note to you because he only made 2,500.
Wow.
And then eventually they're going to come out with the mass
market paperback later on.
But as of right now, it's just if you pre-ordered the book, you got a copy. If you didn't, you're
out of luck.
Waiting, yeah.
Wow.
So, but yeah, the Meg book compared to the Meg movie, completely different. But if anyone's read Jaws and watched Jaws,
it's the same.
It's the same thing. The story's much better. The characters are better.
I have both read and watched Jaws. Jaws is one of your favorite movies, I hear.
It is. It's very much. I watch that on a monthly basis.
Really?
I do.
Wow.
I love that movie.
What do you think of the book? I really enjoyed it, but to me there were a lot of themes that were just way different.
Yeah, just the mayor himself. It was implicated that he was tied up with the mob, and that's why he wanted the beaches open.
Which makes sense. I'm kind of sad that was left out of the movie.
Right, because in the movie, he just wanted the beaches open, and it didn't make any sense.
And you pull at your hair, and you're just like, what an idiot.
But you're the mayor, and you're getting your town people killed.
Yeah.
It's not making any sense.
Yeah.
And Hooper was a bit of a jerk in the book.
Yeah.
But he wasn't in the movie, so...
Yeah.
Some big choices they made, and... They worked out well for the movie, obviously. Cause...
I mean, a movie's a different beast than a book.
Exactly.
In a book, I think you don't have to look any further than Stephen King. We talk about him a lot on this show. But every time he writes the script for one of his adaptations, it goes a bit wrong. Because he's a great novelist, but a script is a different beast. The short story Hearts in Atlantis it's a short story, in air quotes. It's a 100-page short story. About 10 of them are explaining the game Hearts, like the card game.
Right.
If you're going to make a movie or a short film of that, you can't have 10% of your runtime being explaining the game of Hearts.
No, it would never work.
Yeah.
But I think that's a lot of the thing, too. In a book, you can... Okay, this character is thinking this, but he says this. That doesn't translate to a movie, because you can't tell what he's thinking.
Unless that person's the narrator, like on
right.
Dexter.
Exactly. So... it doesn't always work, and then the character can say it, and then you're thinking, okay, well, that's what he said.
I'm telling the students in my class that all the time, because I try to make my books more cinematic. I think there's a lot that writers can learn from film. It's an easy way around show don't tell, because it's really hard to get into a young writer's head what show don't tell means. It's something that people say a lot, but they don't explain what they mean. So what I say instead is, how would they film this?
Right.
So if you're X-rayed into someone's head, your head, and you can see your thoughts, how would you film that? It's easier to have an expression or to have them do an action that, you know what I mean, that shows what they're thinking.
Right. Then
they punch a wall rather than hear them think, I really hate that what just happened. You could show them punching the wall.
Right.
And that illustrates what they're thinking.
Right. So, like, I tried to, for my, like, especially my first book, I tried to do the way the X-Files was paced. Every commercial break was kind of like a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
For the most part. So I tried to make, like, at least every second chapter reach a cliffhanger, you know, in the next chapter.
That you do that. You do that very well.
Yeah, so, and I tried to stay away from that in the second one. I didn't do it quite as often, so just, like, people can't get, like, okay, they're going to predict what's going to happen. The end of this chapter is going to be a cliffhanger, and then all of a sudden it's not, and people are like, what's he doing now? So you keep reading and just, you know, change it up, and don't be a typecast writer like, okay, this guy, this is his writing style.
Yeah.
And every book will be the same.
No, you're very good at surprising. It's amazing. It's very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. Any other books that you've been reading lately?
I've always, every now and then, I just pick up Chillers on the Rock, and I pick a few random stories.
Well, you wrote in Chillers from the Rock.
I do read my own.
Do you have any favorites other than your own? My favorite is yours. The Mummer story was particularly funny. There was a killer Mummer story, which is at the same time terrifying and very Newfoundland based.
Yes, I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And scary at the same time. And I'm working on the sequel for another book of. I got a collection of short stories.
Oh, nice.
I'm working on. It's all horror stories, but whereas like From the Rock series is PG-13.
These are not.
These not. They should be 18A plus.
Very A plus plus.
Yeah. So,
you have to be 70 in order to read them.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
have to get permission from Prime Minister type.
Absolutely.
But I like John
If you
Dobbin.
weren't in the Second World War, you can't read these books.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, you shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah.
But a few favorites in that book. I do like your story, but John Dobbin's story stood out to me.
Yeah.
And a few.
He's a talent.
He is, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice to see the different styles. I enjoy that. That's my favorite From the Rock collection.
Horror. I was in mine too. I was really interested in the Chillers from the Rock because sci-fi is a specific thing.
Right.
Fantasy is a specific thing. What's scary is unique to every person.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is what I think makes that genre great. You could easily do a scary story that was also a fantasy story.
Well, my other story other than Mummers is what I originally submitted for Fantasy from the Rock, the werewolf one. Because I thought that was more fantasy, but that's when you said, well, maybe we'll hold off because we're going to do a Chillers from the Rock.
I didn't realize that. I had forgotten that. Wow.
Yeah, so that was my take on fantasy.
Yeah.
And when you guys said, no, that's more suited for Chillers, then I came up with The Light of Cabot Tower.
Light of Cabot Tower was great.
Yeah.
I like that. You have a strong connection to Newfoundland in your work. Yeah.
No, I do eventually want to do at least one novel that has nothing to do with Newfoundland, but for now I'm happy to...
I would write for Newfoundland if I had it in me. I just don't. In fact, I have one story that I want to tell, and I find I'm just not... I don't have it in me. It's one of those things where I've got to make up the entire setting. Like when I make up a town, I might take the name of a real city, but I'm just completely making it up from the ground up, and it fits theme. But if I try to write about St. John's, I've lived here half of my life, so I have to write it exactly as it is.
Right.
And I can't do it because I don't know.
You had to go visit the location.
Yeah.
You just gotta look for a little... You'd feel like you left something out if you didn't describe...
Well, if I'm making up a city,
if
I'm making up the geography and it's a scary book, then I can make the geography scary. But if it's a place I lived half my life, it's not scary. It's just the way it is,
right.
You know?
No, I can see that now. Downtown St. John's can be scary.
Downtown St. John's can be scary for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, but it's not... it's more of a beautiful city that if the light hits it just the right way and you're in the right mood. If you just watch The Exorcist and then you walk down a back alley, I could see just the slightest little thing giving you a fright, because like, you know, a cat jumping out of an alley or something. But that could be anywhere then.
Yeah, I gotta say, there's nothing creepier than when I was younger and I'd walk home in downtown St. John's in the middle of the night when you can't see any people.
Right.
If it's ever like that early in the morning and you've got the streets but they're bare and you can start hearing noises, then it's like, what? Where did that come from?
What was that?
Because people live down there, so there's always going to be noise. But if they're if they're in their homes, you can't see them, so it's like, what's going on?
Could just be someone using the washroom late at night.
Could be anything.
It could be anything.
Yep. Could be a zombie on the rock.
It could be.
Could be.
One of these days. So, Matt, you wrote quite the unique little burning suspense thriller in Jacoby Street.
Yeah, that was a weird book. I wrote that out of spite.
Out of spite, so...
yeah. I was in a Mun class with someone...
Smoked?
I was in a creative writing class at Memorial University, which houses CHMR, but the purveyor, the teacher of that creative writing class, hated genre fiction, and particularly vampire fiction, because Twilight was all the rage at the time. So I decided that for his class I would write a vampire genre thing. I had sworn off vampires, and he was like, no one's allowed to write vampire fiction in this class. And I was like, I'll show you. And what's funny is there's so little vampire in it. Like, it's a slow burn kind of thing.
You could even, like, the reader might even get that it's something else. You could take it a different way.
I'd take it the Walking Dead way. I'm a big fan of the fact that the word zombie has never been uttered in the TV show The Walking Dead. So I'll never, if it's a vampire book, I'll never say the word vampire. If it's a zombie book, I'll never say the word zombie.
Right. So it is up to the reader to decide what is the main...
Very much.
Yeah, right. But you did a very good job building the suspense. Like, each chapter, like, it just started to ratchet up a little more each time. And then, like, before you know it, it's so suspenseful. And you're just waiting for anything to happen. Like, the big scare. And, like, it just keeps building and getting more and more intense.
Well, I don't care about spoilers. So to me, the big scare, and the one that gets commented on by some people, is the essay, where you're talking about, you realize, because I did a bit of art research for this. I looked up a bunch of artists that I wanted to feature, because the story takes place in an art museum.
Right.
My favorite drawing is Edward Munch's The Scream, and I did a section on it where I describe how it moves. Like, there are 5 or 6 different versions of the Scream, and if you put them in the right order, it looks like animation. Like, it looks like the characters are moving, because there's slight differences in each one.
Okay, so kind of like the flip book, when you draw, like, a bunch of stickmen, and you flip through it, and they're running.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, so
that kind of thing. Like, they're all on different mediums, so it goes from black and white to color to this, but the character looks like he's running down the thing. It's like the artist was making... Now, Edward Munch didn't mean it this way. He was just experimenting with different versions to see where he wanted it, where he wanted the 2 characters in the background, stuff like that. But if you put them in the right order and flip them like a flip book, like you're saying, it looks like the character's running. And that's taken from real life. So when I put that in the book about a painting that also moved, that creeped people out, because a lot of people immediately went to Wikipedia and looked this up and went, holy, that's true, and then were just creeped out.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, you did a great job of, not that nothing happens, but, like, you know, when you have an action movie, 2 people fight, and then later on they fight again, like, that's one way to build tension, but you built tension with just having everyday normal stuff happen.
Yeah.
Without having, like, a climatic event and then having to come back down before you went back up. Your novel just keeps...
It's a creepy book.
Yeah, it just steadily gets...
There's no third act, though.
No.
No, like...
But I didn't need it.
I almost want to get, like, I didn't even realize until after the fact that there's no... It's like The Strangers. There's no third act. I'm like, oh, I got to go back to this. But thank you. It means a lot. I think of you as, like, the engine horror writer now. I have stepped back, and now I am publisher, and I mostly do crime. You are the engine horror guy now.
Thank you.
So it means a lot
that
it gets your stamp of approval.
Thank you.
All right, well, thanks for coming out. Good luck back out in Corner Brook. They are lucky to have such a great author out there, my good sir.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having me with Engine. I love the team.
No problem. And on the Right Project podcast, if you're looking for a good scare this Halloween, some cool stuff, check out either Paul's story in Chillers from the Rock or his solo novel, Zombies on the Rock Outbreak and Zombies on the Rock The Viking Trail.
Just remember, if there's any mummers allowed in, you let them in.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
All right, well, thanks for coming on again. For all of you, we'll be here again next week at 4:30 Newfoundland time or online at chmr.ca. Please tune in and we'll talk more about writing culture in Newfoundland.